Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Small Talk, where we educate, engage you a little bit more in the community, inspire you to do your own big thing, and probably provide some entertainment along the way. I am your host, Christy Smallwood. I am the Chief Strategic Guide for Eagle Eye Strategies, a strategy-first business located here in Louisville, Kentucky, that helps provide services to fuel your strategies, such as marketing, business coaching, training and development, and strategic planning. Now, I want to give a super shout out to our sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews. Without them, I wouldn't have so many guests this year. This has been fantastic. I've just now got this immediate pool of people because I'm also an affinity partner with the Chamber of St. Matthews. And so I'm going to get right to it today because I have a fellow affinity partner for the Chamber as my guest today on Small Business Small Talk. And I want to welcome in Mary Witten with Streamline Payments. Is it services? Streamline Payments? Just
Streamline Payments.
Streamline Payments. Okay. So basically, Mary, you're one of those people who come in and help us just get money, right? Like figure out how to get the money.
That's right. Everybody wants to get paid for what they do.
That would be super nice.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit more. Go ahead and tell us about Mary. So how did you get started in business and what got you to where you are now and all that good stuff?
Well, I actually started in business-to-business sales when I was 22 years old. Scared to death, but I had a mentor that had a lot of confidence in me, way more than I had in myself, and convinced me that I had the skills to do that. So I was in advertising sales for 15 years.
Oh, God.
And yeah. And loved that job. I loved making a difference, taking a concept and turning it into something that worked for the client. And so there's a lot of satisfaction in that job. Went through a divorce and decided, I don't want to sell anymore. I actually did accounting for an ad agency, though. So
again, God love you.
Yeah. Well, that's opposite ends of the spectrum, is it not? So after the small stint, it was just about a year and a half at accounting, I got the itch to go back out and join Salesforce again. So after that, I went to work for the Kentucky Restaurant Association as the director of membership. Another job I loved. It was so social, and parties and entertainment and food, and it was just so exciting. I learned so much about the industry. I basically left out on Monday morning and traveled the state of Kentucky from Pikeville to Paducah, visiting restaurants, talking legislative issues, that sort of thing. And
I'm sure eating all kinds of yummy.
Oh my gosh, I gained a lot. But I loved the job. So worked with some fabulous people. And then I had an opportunity to go into merchant services. I really didn't know anything about it, didn't have a lot of understanding of it, but a job offer came my way, and it was one of those, you can't refuse offers. And so I left the KRA and joined a company called First Data, who at the time, I don't know what their status is today, but they were the largest credit card processor in the world. So that excited me, that they were such a large organization. I went to work for them, but it was in 1999. So back then, there wasn't as much competition as there is today. There were only about a handful of actual credit card processors. The industry had just begun a super growth rate. The concept of the invention of the debit card, ATM cards came initially, and then they were converted over to debit cards. So you could actually make purchases with your bank account beyond just a paper check. That had just started. They actually in 1999. in 1999. They were actually talking about the chip cards in 1999, believe it or not, too. So 20 years ago, we knew that was coming. It just took us a really long time to get there.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that's already been 20 years. Well, I've just aged myself right there. Right there.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So
now, was this like all at the same time? PayPal, like internet online sales, hadn't really kicked in yet, had it?
No, it had not. No, it was mostly just retail restaurant. Most commercial B2B businesses were not accepting credit cards. Medical offices were not accepting credit cards. Fast food was not. It was mostly just your restaurant and retail type businesses then. So that's what I focused on, was that. But then as time went on, we started seeing more and more industries. The invention, if you will, of the Flex card, HSA card, got the medical industry kind of in on it because we're now on a card. So more and more medical started setting up for card payment services. So checks were slowly going by the wayside. Fewer and fewer people were writing checks and more leaning toward the card. And
now I will say on those checks, I remember when you could go to like Walmart, whatever, and I hand you the check and they run it through the thing. Like, and it just like automatically took it all in. And it was just, I was like, what is this little gadget? And then all of a sudden we have the block sticker, swipe the card. And now we're up to just stick the card in. It'll tell you when to take it out and you're done. I'm like, technology is just like super exponentially made it way too easy to throw in a card and use money.
Well, in the process of making it easy, they've also made it vulnerable because, more technology means more fraud and more chance of fraud, more risk of theft. And unfortunately, a lot of the folks that are now committing the fraud came from the industry. They learned the tricks.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's changed quickly, slowly but quickly. It's actually been like one piece at a time, but we all of a sudden blinked and here we are, not using cash at all. And I know that banks are opening checking accounts where there's no checks actually associated with the account. They do everything with electronic transfer or electronic payments. So checks haven't gone by any stretch of the imagination, but they're rarely used. It was, I think, at one point, the only checks that were ever written were between individuals. But now we've got Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay,
it's
Android
crazy
Pay.
You can pay and get paid. A lot of options.
Yeah.
So how do you guys at Streamline, how do you pull all that together? Or do you focus in one specific avenue?
Streamline Payments started about 10 years ago, though the founders came from the industry and they all have 30 plus years in this industry. They actually started as lending. They were lending to small processors and then ultimately ended up becoming a processor themselves. And the founders have a lot of history in this industry. And that's one of the things that attracted me to them was the fact that they were as much focused on service as they were on sales. The big processors are just the opposite. They just want to gain new clients, and Streamline Payments wasn't like that at all. So I really liked their business model, that retaining a client was as important as gaining a client. And So Streamline Payments, because of all their expertise in the industry, they looked at the need of the industry. They looked into the future where they thought they saw things going, and they were spot on, which was online payments. And then also the B2B side of payments. So even though, of course, we do retail and restaurant, but we also have a heavy focus on e-commerce, which has really kicked off this year with the COVID,
Absolutely.
And then the B2B side of it, which is business to business. I tell this story all the time. I have a friend that works for Ford, and he was in purchasing. He used to carry around a PO book and would hand out POs. And the people he was buying from would submit their POs and wait 90 days for their money. Well, he doesn't carry a PO book anymore. He carries a corporate Visa. So for Ford, they don't have to pay all those vendors. They pay one Visa bill. And for the vendors, they get paid within 24 hours instead of submitting a PO and waiting 90 days for payables to send in. So even the B2B world has now realized the value of electronic payments.
It is definitely a faster transaction. That's for sure. And one of the things, there's always going to be a fee attached. Like if you want your money faster, there's a fee attached to it. Mm-hmm. But it's depending now, because I understand American Express takes a higher fee out.
Slightly. Mm-hmm. It used to be a lot worse than what it is today. But American Express has marketed themselves to the corporations, to the high-end individual. So for a business to not accept American Express, I think is a detriment, because they miss that group, the corporate, if you will, and the purchasing agent, the higher income person. American Express saw Visa and MasterCard introduce their own corporate cards and higher income, gold signature cards and such. So American Express realized, okay, we got competition now, and we've got to get competitive. So their interchange rates have dropped, and they're more in line with Visa and MasterCard than they were in the past.
Very cool. So what's one thing that you find that you really love about what you're doing?
Again, just like I was saying earlier, when I worked in advertising, was I love making a difference. For a new business starting up, I love to help them. We love to make friends, but we're in business to make money. And I love it when I'm able to help someone with that. A new startup business. I've done this long enough now that I have a lot of resources and people that I know that I've met that help small businesses. I love when I'm able to refer someone to them that helps them get their business going. There's just a satisfaction in knowing you've helped someone that I enjoy immensely. And or to walk into a business that unknowingly has been paying way more than they thought they had to, or they knew that they had to, or they get focused on the day-to-day operations, and then they don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on with their merchant services, and then you're able to shine a light on that.
Yeah, because honestly, this is one of those things that falls under, if bookkeeping is not your thing, neither is this. Like, we just want to go do the thing that we do in business and get the money for it. We don't have time to overanalyze or do the research or like having somebody like you come in and do that, what would be a good, I don't know, a check-in schedule? Like, how often should we check on stuff like that?
At least annually, at the very least. But I find a lot, Christy, that people don't even know how to read the statement. They're not sure what they're actually paying.
Right.
So they get the statement, they see it's high, they grumble about it, but they put the amount in their registry and fold the statement up and move on till next month. So I think it's really important in this industry to have, a teacher mentality, an educative approach, so that businesses know how to read their statement. They know what they're paying. It's impossible to price your product or service properly if you don't know what your costs are. Some things are hard costs, like your rent, but then others are variable, like your utility bill or your merchant services. So you have to learn to be able to budget that in. And a good credit card processor will help you do that. They'll make sure you understand your statement. They'll stay in contact with you. As things change within the industry, they'll keep you aware, and make sure that your rates are in line for your business type. Rates vary based on whether you're face-to-face or over the phone or e-commerce, and you want to make sure that they're set properly, for their business type.
So have you found, because I still know a couple, have you found any businesses out there that still are like cash or check only? We don't really want to deal with the credit card stuff yet. Like, who has not come into the 21st century yet?
Yeah. Well, there's still some hair salons that don't, and that's kind of a complicated piece because technically, unless they're employees, they're booth runners, which means they're their own entity, and each one of them have to set up their own merchant account. So that means either you've got 12 different credit card devices in the salon, or you've got one that could support multiple accounts on it. So some of those are still cash and check, or they try to do an app on their phone, which that's not very secure, but it's convenient, so they go that route. Barbers on the other side, a lot of barbers are still not taking cards. So there's a few lingering out there that feel like they don't need it. But more often than not, not only does your income go up, but the average size of your transaction goes up when you're able to take a card. They don't budget themselves as much when paying with a card as they will when they got to pull the cash out of their wallet.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Because it hurts to like hand over cash.
Yeah, it does.
Like you feel that.
I am so guilty of that. I'm not quite like my children are. They don't have $1 in their pocket and have it for months. They will buy their soda and bag of peanuts with their debit card. I still carry a little bit of cash, but I never want to let it go.
Same. I've literally got $2 bills. Plus, I always keep a handful of quarters because you just never know. And I'm like, they don't have payphones anymore. You don't have to keep the quarters. Like, I don't know how to break that habit. It's just, for backup. You should always have something there for backup. But it very well is a generational thing that we behave differently with our money than other people do. So, okay. So back to those the one-man shop people that are, first of all, time capacity. I don't have time to figure out how to figure this piece out, but how does it benefit them to do credit card processing? Like, is there an easy way to do it? Like a website, how do I make that super easy for myself?
Well, I think the first thing is to find a good company to work with. Because as I mentioned earlier, in 1999, there wasn't much competition. Today, everybody and their brother wants to get into the electronic payment industry, and they are everywhere you look. I go into businesses that say we've been called 15 times today because these companies start up, they fill a phone room full of people. The sad part is this is a complicated industry, and most of the time these people have a week or two of training, which is absolutely not enough. This industry takes years to learn, and these people they're selling on price. They lock you into contracts. They lock you into equipment leases, and then when you need help, they're not they're not there for you. And then you don't understand what you've done. So the most important thing is to find a good company that's going to be there, that when you call them, you're going to get a live person. You're going to get to talk to the person that set up your account, that they'll show up at your door if you need them to and sit down with you, go through your statements with you to make sure that you understand it. You really need to set your business up based on how you're going to process. If you're what we call retail, which is pretty much anything that is a face-to-face type transaction, you want the ability to read a magnetic strip, you want the ability to read a chip. If most of your stuff is done over the phone, then you'll probably want an online portal that you could log into and take the payments that way, and it keeps all your history. If you're e-commerce, then you're going to want possibly a shopping cart and the proper security on there. So it just depends on what your needs are and what you're looking for. And it's important that whoever you hire to provide this service for you, that they literally provide service behind the sale, because there's so many that do not.
And you pointed out something that just brought to mind for me. As a purchaser, I just want it to be easy. But as a designer of the process, there's a lot of complicated pieces to that to make it easy for somebody to just hand over their money, right? Mm-hmm. So and I know doing strategy work with people and marketing plans and this and that and the other, I know there's a lot of challenges in that. So what's a big challenge that you've had to overcome in what you do?
I would say there's been many times I've gone into a business that has had a bad experience with somebody in this industry. Mm-hmm. They've bought from someone that promised them one thing, and that's not what they got. They struggled to get their money in their bank account, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, yes. And when there's been 15 other individuals that walked in your door and tried to sell you merchant services, and then I show up, they just group me with that 15. And I feel like that I'm definitely tenured in the industry. I have a lot of experience. I've sold a lot of different accounts, a lot of different types. Streamline Payments is forever educating us. We go through a lot of training and a lot of classes. Every time a new product comes out, there's a new class that we're in. So we try to stay up with the industry. But when someone's been burned, for lack of a better word, they're scared to make a move.
Yeah.
And, I've walked into a business before and took a look at how they were set up and looked at their statements and realized they are set up completely wrong for the type of industry that they are, and they needed something different. And changing how they were doing it was going to save them thousands of dollars on top of hours of work. Sometimes they've got something too complicated for what they should be using. So going in and making a change to how they're set up, and many times being able to save them money, and yet they're still scared to move. This is not kind of one of those things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because just because something isn't screaming in your ear doesn't mean that it doesn't have a slow leak. And you can, it's not something to ignore. In today's world, there are businesses that 80, 90, in some cases, 100% of their income is coming through their credit card processing. And you can't risk not paying attention to that. If that all of a sudden went down tomorrow, could your business survive?
So
So
short answer is no.
Yeah.
20 years ago, sure, but now, no, not even close. Oh, and I had a thought and it just went out the window. So let's go on to the next thing. So you've been in a couple of different industries, and we talked in our proverbial green room. You also had a stint in banking for a while. So yeah, you've been able to run the gamut of the different career sets. Who have been some of your big influencers over time?
Oh my gosh. I have had a lot of mentors, let me tell you. In my early years, there was a local advertising agency made up of these three older gentlemen. And
Which one? I might remember.
it was called McDivitt, Henley, and Cotter.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah. So these three gentlemen were a well-known ad agency in this area. And I was young in the industry. I had gone into a business that literally screamed at me and told me to get the heck out of their business. And I left there in tears. And there was a guy, Joe McDivitt, and I went by his ad agency was right around the corner. So I just stopped in there and I had tears in my eyes. He could tell I was upset. And so we sat down and we talked, and he convinced me, don't be afraid. You know, that the problem with that situation was that person, not you. And that they are the person on the other side of that desk is no different than you are. That there's something going on. If they treat you weirdly, there's something going on with them, not you. You just be who you are, and be fearless. Don't ever let someone make you feel less than what you are.
And that is absolutely true, because I usually tell people if I'm in a bad mood, I stay to myself for your safety, not like, just
yeah. You know, so and he made me feel so much better that day that I got to where every time he looked up, I was walking in his office for some words of encouragement. But he was such a mentor to me, and I just adored him, and he was like a grandfather. There was also I had a manager when I first joined First Data. I had one manager, and then another, and then another, and then another. And it wasn't because people were leaving. It was because the company was growing so rapidly that people were making upward moves into different levels of management and so forth. But I was on about my fifth sales manager, and this guy was down in Nashville. And he was the kindest person I ever met. And he never talked down to you, even though he was your superior. You were equal to him, and you always felt that way. And I'll never forget when my dad passed away. And I called him and left him a message that he had passed away, and I was going to be out for a few days. And he called me back, and he said, "You take all the time you need to be with your family and grieve for your father. And when the smoke clears and you feel better, I want to take you out to lunch, and you sit and tell me all the wonderful things about your dad."
Oh, that was very sweet.
That just melted my heart. And I will tell you that I wanted to get back to work for him. I wanted to get back and do my best and work for that man, because he cared about me. And I think it's important that we all feel that, no matter what we do for a living, that there's somebody out there to pick us up when we're down, and somebody out there to give a shoulder, when we're sad. Life is not fair. It's not fair. And bad things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people, but in the scheme of things, we all lean on each other, and we need the support. We need the support of friends.
Absolutely. So you've already shared a couple, but what is the biggest, best piece of advice that you've got that you've implemented over time?
Like you mean advice I would give to someone coming into this industry or just generally?
Well, that's a separate question that, yes, I'm going to ask. But something that, so you've talked about is it Joe? Yes, that said it's the other person, not
Uh-huh.
you. What is another piece of advice somebody's given you over time that you is just now ingrained? Like it's the thing you live by, piece of advice that you've gotten.
Honesty and integrity. Because no matter where you go, your reputation follows you. And if you mislead or lie or don't keep your promises, that will be remembered. And when I left the advertising industry, I didn't burn any bridges there. People knew I didn't always get the account because I told the truth. The person that promised and didn't deliver may have got the account, but they also destroyed their reputation.
And the
So,
relationship.
yes.
Yeah.
So, all the sales that I've done over the years, there is not one door that I'm reluctant to walk into. There's not one account that I felt like I did wrong that I would not go back to because I can't promise I'll be all things to all people. That's just not the way life works. That's why we have variety and differences and opinions. But no one will ever be able to say she lied to me. She didn't treat me fairly. She made a promise she didn't deliver on. Because I just don't do that. And that's probably the most valuable thing I've learned.
Nice. Okay, so then that other question, what piece of advice would you give somebody else?
Well, probably a lot of the same advice that I got myself, but then also I would say learn the business. Get as educated as you possibly can about it. Go to this industry is complicated. It's not, it's, just like yours, Christy, it's not as simple as it looked. There's a lot of wheels and cogs moving in the background that people just don't see. And this is a complicated industry. And you cannot get a couple of weeks worth of training and go out and expect to be successful. It's really important that if you're interested in the industry, you want to go to work for the industry, go somewhere where they will give you extensive training. And keep in mind that you learn as you go too. You won't always be perfect in the beginning, and as time goes, you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to go wrong. But my dad always said, you learn more from your mistakes than your accomplishments. And that is so true.
So true. Let's not do that again.
Yeah. And that has been yourself. When you do, forgive yourself. We're human beings.
Yes. And honestly, that what you just said there, it's trial and error and forgive yourself has been a consistent theme with all of my guests this season for 2020. I don't know if we're finally coming into this, realization of we've been too hard on ourselves, or the realization also that, oh my gosh, everything can change in an instant. We have to keep learning new things. Like there's a lot that's come out this year, but that's been the consistent theme that keep learning. You're going to learn from your mistakes, and it's okay to have mistakes and to be gentle on yourself about it. And, our small business community, those that I work with are more like real super type A's. Like we're so driven, but the downside of that is that we're very hard on ourselves. So it's one of the big, emotional challenges internally that it's hard to lighten up a little bit.
Well, and this year, you hit the nail on the head. This year has taught us all something, that no matter how prepared that we thought we were, um, anything can come in and flip the table. And that's exactly what happened this year. No one expected this. And you look around and you see businesses that were not able to survive it. And not only did we lose loved ones, we lost restaurants that had been in town for 40 years that did not survive. And that is lives. That's people's lives. That's their, livelihood, their employees. And, it turned everything on its head. And no one, I don't think, knew how to maneuver through it. We all have stumbled through this year. We have all stumbled through it. And for some businesses, it was a huge gain for them. I have a client that does swimming pools. Well, nobody took vacation, so everybody's putting in swimming pools. So his business took off more than he was able to handle.
He's like, what just happened?
Yes, exactly.
In a great way, but it's like, how do you, right? Because if everything shifts, those that have had, kind of slow and steady now are just being bombarded. But then those who had strong seasonal things like events, for example, anybody in the event industry, that just immediately poofed out, like gone for this year. So it's like, right. And you can only wait so long before you do have to make some money. The government really doesn't care if you make it or not. Like, you have to be able to earn some income to pay the rent, pay the electric, pay this, pay that, like eat. Like, that's kind of important too. So we have to make some revenue to be able to support what we need to keep things going. But it's like, dang, gone. You're right. The swimming pool guy, I didn't even think about that guy because I can't get one yet. But I was like, yeah. Although inflatable hot tubs, that was a hot conversation right off the bat this year.
Well, it has definitely been a paradigm swing, and think outside the box to keep yourself afloat. I mean, look at all the restaurants that have come up with some sort of outdoor seating that never had it before, and ways to keep their restaurants open through the colder winter. And you have to be flexible, and that's how you survive this. So I think we've all had to forgive ourselves this year, because I don't know that you could have been prepared for this, and I don't even want to beat up our government for it, because, this wasn't a United States thing. This was a global thing.
Global, yeah.
Nobody could have been prepared for it. Yeah, nobody.
It's not just us. It's every single person on the planet.
That's right. Yeah. So, but I feel like we're on the backside now, don't you, Christy? You feel like
I would like to hope so. Now,
yeah, I feel like we're taking a turn.
I tend to not look at headlines in a day, because they just either thoroughly piss me off or just depress me.
Yeah.
So I don't, because if I watch all the headlines, they say the world is ending today anyway, regardless of, pick a subject, we're dying from something, whatever. So I don't look at that, which also gives me hope. It allows me space to hope again when I don't dive into news media headline gobbledygook. So,
well, I think in the beginning we all looked at the headlines, and now it's like, I don't want to hear that anymore. I refuse, and especially a personality who's, searches for the positive in everything, searches for that light. And we don't want to hear it. We're gonna succeed no matter what you say.
I mean, I understand this whole quote unquote new normal. Just wear your damn mask and wash your hands. Like, be aware, right? Be cautious and aware. But other than that, I'm done. I'm done considering it. I've adjusted to this thing. I don't know why we're still talking about it. Like, just adjust and keep living.
Right.
That's where we are.
Right.
But this added stress of everything, like going back to some of our pre-green room conversation, is like the added stress of just having to pay more attention to literally everything just drains all of us in a day. And so we do need to have a little extra, grace, gentleness to ourselves, and that will help extend grace and gentleness to others as well in the community.
That's right.
So, okay. Now I mentioned at the very beginning, you and I are both affinity partners for our local chamber of St. Matthews.
Right.
So let's talk about that for just a quick second. So what does it mean for you to be the affinity partner?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce wants to be able to provide more to its members. There was a time when people joined the chamber just out of loyalty. And I don't think that happens so much anymore. Today, people are looking for something more tangible. What's there for me? Why should I join? So the folks at the chamber have done a fabulous job of obtaining what I would call member benefits, and in the form of insurance and credit card processing. So they did not just pick someone out of the yellow pages. They chose companies that they knew would provide for their members fairly, honestly. They basically did the work for the member. So when someone's in need of some help with marketing, they know that Christy Smallwood has already been vetted through the chamber, that Mary Witten's company has already been researched in background, and the chamber member doesn't have to, because
there is a process. Like
it is.
We don't just get to go affinity partner. No, we go through.
Well, and a lot of times that's why businesses don't change to something better, because it is so much work. So I would say trust your chamber. They've done the work for you. They chose companies that they researched and determined were the cream of the crop, if you will, and the ones that were going to take good care of you.
Yeah, I do like all of our affinity partners. I had an interview with Jeff Elder with GenPale, so he works with some of that stuff too. He's a partner as well, and it's just been. I'm a new one. I'm the newbie on the block to provide the services, but I understand the benefit as a chamber member that I've received through those affinity partnerships. And so it's one of those things I do like to brag about. If you have a chamber, because I know this podcast goes pretty much everywhere. I know more locals listen than outside, but if you have a chamber that you haven't tapped into that provides those benefits, if you're listening, watching, whatever, feel free to check us out. The Chamber of St. Matthews, stmatthewschamber.com, because we pretty much go everywhere. We, especially in 2020, man, we're virtual and we're very active. I've met a ton of new people this year through the screen that I hadn't seen out and about at an event before, because it's just become more convenient. They don't have, as I talked about, sometimes it's nice to be able to have that break of drive from point A to point B in between meetings, but sometimes that doesn't work for everybody. So being able to have community this way, especially this year, is just as important, because back to putting into a community to recharge ourselves is just as important in our business.
Well, that's what a chamber of commerce is all about. It's all about promoting the business and coming up with resources and putting business owner together, to find out how Streamline Payments can help, Christy Smallwood's business. And, it's a social concept to help us work together for the better of the community and the better of our businesses. So when you have a chamber of commerce that's done all the work for you and come up with the resources for you, that's the ultimate. It saves work for you. You don't have to search and interview a bunch of different companies, because the chamber's done it for you. So.
Absolutely. And I also just bragged this morning at a different meeting for the chamber, a member orientation meeting, that we love to collaborate together. Our chamber's members work great together as teams. We have some competitiveness going on. Let's make no mistake. We all have competitors in the area, but as far as being able to put those synergy groups together and collaborate, like, it just builds a great business community that touches every community. And so it's important for, partners like you, partners like myself for the chamber to be present, to be there, to, have interviews like this to share who we are as people and a little bit more about the business and what it means to be able to be a part of that community. Okay, one last question. What does success look like for you?
Well, I think it's a balance. That's a really good question. I think it's balance. It's, I love what I do, but I don't want to do it 24/7. I have family and friends and a social life and a church and, my community that I want to stay in contact with. So for me, success is being able to give a fair amount of time to each of those. I have 2 adult children, 5 grandchildren, 2 sets of identical twins.
Oh no.
Yes. Identical twin boys that just turned 12 and identical twin girls that turned 7. Yes.
Wow.
So, and then another little oddball boy, but I love spending time with those kids. I love spending time with my family. I want to be able to do that, but I also want to help businesses too. I don't see myself retiring anytime soon because I love what I do. I love the social aspect of it. I enjoy meeting people. And whenever I can help someone, that's success to me. If I can't, I'm happy to shake hands and part ways friends. But if I can help, I want to be able to help. So, keeping everything in balance, I think, because it's difficult. It's difficult to do that.
Absolutely. Well, Mary, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been really
Christy.
Great to get to know you and Streamline Payments. Leslie, I'll throw them into the bunch too.
That's right.
And the industry, because it gets so complicated. So with that, what's the best way people can get in touch with you if they have more questions?
Well, Streamline Payments is headquartered in Louisville, though we have a presence literally from coast to coast. Where our strength, I would say, is in the Midwest. My office, you can always reach me. Can I get my office number?
Absolutely.
It's 502-239-0012. I give out my cell phone number too, 502-593-4867. You can email me at mwitten, Witten, at streamlinepayments.com, or go to our website at streamlinepayments.com, and you can always reach me through there as well.
Perfect. And I will get that information from you to be able to put into the description for this episode. That way they can kind of just click through if they want to.
Awesome.
Give them the easy button as well. So with that, Mary, again, thank you for your time and your input today. It's been very much a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you all for watching and listening today for this episode of Small Business Small Talk. It's been my pleasure as well to put all of these things together. I hope that you guys get a lot out of it. Thank you for coming and showing up at each and every one of our episodes. If you've missed any, go back and watch them or listen to them again. And you can always ask Alexa because she'll play it. All you have to just say, play the latest episode of Small Business Small Talk with the host, Christy Smallwood. See how I did that there? Small Business Small Talk with Smallwood. All right, so enough of my craziness. Everybody have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you again at the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.